Welcome to Hard Script.
She looked me dead in the eyes, barely blinking, and said the words like they meant nothing. I'm celebrating alone this year. No emotion, no hesitation, just cold detachment on the one day that used to mean everything to us, our wedding anniversary. And just like that, something snapped in me. She didn't know it yet, but this anniversary would be the last one we'd ever share. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to give her exactly what she said she wanted, permanence. She said alone? Fine. I'd make sure it stayed that way. But before we get to what happened next, let me take you back to the build-up. Because this didn't happen overnight. You don't end a marriage in one sentence. You starve it, slowly, until it dies in silence. It started small. Missed texts, distant hugs. Her phone always flipped face down. She'd changed her lock screen. No more photo of us, just some abstract pattern. I noticed the silence before I noticed the absence. She was still there, physically, but the version of her I married? Gone. 2 months before our anniversary, she stopped wearing her ring. Said it was too tight. I offered to get it resized. She laughed and said not to bother. 1 month before, she started going out more. Girls' nights, she called them. But girls' nights didn't usually involve new perfume, red lipstick, and her phone blowing up with messages she wouldn't let me see. 2 weeks before, I caught her deleting conversations, quick, nervous swipes when I walked into the room. She didn't even bother pretending she wasn't hiding something. She just said, "Don't start." And I didn't, because I was done starting. I was watching now, taking notes, preparing. So when she told me she was celebrating alone, I didn't argue. I didn't ask where she was going or who she was meeting. I just nodded. That night, while she was out, wherever she was, I stayed home. Packed a suitcase, sorted documents, pulled cash, transferred passwords. I wasn't reacting. I was executing. She thought silence meant weakness. She thought I'd stay just because I always had. But what she didn't realize was that this time, I wasn't waiting for her to come back. I was planning my exit so well, so quietly, that when I walked out, there'd be no mess. Just space. A permanent kind. The one she asked for. The next morning, she came back like nothing had happened. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking black coffee, her favorite blend, brewed for one. She tossed her keys on the counter, kicked off her heels, and didn't even glance in my direction. She walked right past me like I was part of the furniture. No hello, no guilt, just the quiet hum of a woman who believed she still had control. But something in me had already shifted. The part of me that used to ache when she dismissed me? Numb. The part that used to hope she'd come back around? Gone. I didn't speak. Not because I didn't have words, but because she didn't deserve them anymore. Words are for people who want to listen. She didn't. So I watched her go about her morning, scrolling through her phone, laughing softly at something on the screen. Probably one of those late-night texts from whoever made her feel like she was the center of the universe again. And I thought, perfect. Let him have her. By noon, I'd made a list. Step by step. Clean. Strategic. Cold. I started with the accounts, bank, utilities, subscriptions. I changed every password, rerouted every notification. She didn't notice. She never paid attention to how things ran, only that they ran. Next came the logistics. I emailed a real estate agent. Quietly listed the condo. It was in my name. She never cared to be on the deed. Said she didn't want the responsibility. Fine. She wouldn't have it. By evening, I was already planning where I'd stay next. My buddy Mason offered his guest house months ago, half joking, half concerned. He saw the signs before I did. Told me I was disappearing in my own life. He wasn't wrong, but not anymore. At dinner, she asked what I was making. Not if I was making dinner for both of us. Just what I was cooking. I told her I wasn't hungry. She shrugged and ordered takeout. A year ago, that would have started a fight. 6 months ago, it would have ended in silence. Now, it was data. More proof that she had replaced partnership with convenience. That she didn't see me, not really. Just a presence that took up space and kept the lights on. But the lights? I was switching them off. She thought this was still her game. That she had time to play both sides, to keep me tethered while she explored her freedom. But freedom comes with consequences. And I was about to show her exactly what it looked like when a man stops issuing warnings and starts executing decisions. 2 days after the anniversary, I stopped doing the little things. No more morning coffee for her. No more reminders about bills or dentist appointments. No more checking in when she got home late. I went silent, not with words, but with action. She noticed. She asked if I was okay. I said, I'm fine. She asked if something was wrong. I said, nothing worth discussing. She didn't like that answer. But she didn't push, either. Because deep down, she knew. She knew she'd crossed a line, and that I wasn't playing her game anymore. She started doing things she hadn't done in months. Wearing her ring. Asking if I wanted to go out. Touching my shoulder when she walked by. But it all felt staged. Like she was trying to rewind a tape she'd already shredded. Too late. You can't reheat respect once it's gone cold. That weekend, I made copies of every document. Marriage license, tax forms, property titles. I put them in a folder, labeled it simply, closure. I slid it into my briefcase like it was just another file. Another task to finish. Because that's what she had become, a task. Not a partner. Not a teammate. Just something that had once required effort, but now only required follow-through. I remember standing in the closet that Sunday night, looking at the two halves of it. My side, organized, minimal. Her side, overflowing, chaotic, untouched for weeks. It hit me then. I'd made space for someone who never planned to make room for me. I took down a small box from the top shelf. Inside were old anniversary cards, love notes, photos from when we were still pretending. I didn't read them. Didn't need to. I just closed the lid and dropped it into a bag marked for donation. Let someone else romanticize illusions. I was done. By Monday, I'd moved half my clothes into Mason's guest house. Quiet. Unannounced. No arguments. Just presence turned absence. That night, she came home late again. I was already gone. But I left one thing behind. A single envelope on the kitchen counter with her name on it. Inside was a note. Not angry. Not emotional. Just one sentence, handwritten in ink she used to compliment. You want it alone. Now you have it, permanently. That was the last time I ever stepped foot in that house. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a man reclaiming his silence and making it permanent. I turned my phone off that night. Not because I was hiding, but because I was done being reachable to someone who only noticed my presence when it was gone. Mason handed me a beer on the patio and didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Men like him, they've seen this before. The slow erosion. The denial. The silence that builds until it breaks everything. At 6:42 a.m., my phone lit up with 7 missed calls. All from her. By 7:03, there was a text. Where are you? Followed by, are you okay? Then, we need to talk. I didn't respond. She didn't deserve my clarity after years of weaponizing her own silence. I went for a run. Cleared my head. Came back to another wave of messages. Some frantic. Some angry. Her rhythm was obvious. Panic. Blame. Guilt. A cycle designed to pull me back in. But this time, I wasn't circling back. I wasn't hers anymore. Around noon, she tried calling Mason. I watched the name flash across his phone. He glanced at me. I shook my head. He hit decline. She finally showed up in person later that evening. Pulled into the driveway like she still had access to this version of my life. She walked straight to the door, knocked once, and waited. I didn't move. She knocked again, louder this time. Mason opened the door just enough to be clear. He said, he doesn't live here for you anymore. She stood there, stunned. He didn't explain. He didn't invite her in. He just shut the door. Clean. Final. Later, he told me her hands were shaking. Said she looked like she'd seen a ghost. But what she really saw was a future where I no longer filled the space she left empty. She called again that night, voicemail this time. Her voice cracked. She said she didn't know what had happened, didn't understand why I would leave without talking. But that was the thing. I'd talked. For months. With my words. My patience. My silence. She just never listened. And now that I was gone, now she wanted to hear everything. But it doesn't work like that. When a man finally chooses peace over proximity, he doesn't offer explanations. He offers distance. And that distance? It's not punishment. It's protection from her chaos, from her games, from her belief that love can be switched on and off like a light. I left so she could see what alone truly felt like. Because she said it with pride once. Now, she'd learn what it meant. She used to thrive on being in control. Everything about her presence was calculated. The way she answered messages hours later to keep me guessing. How she'd smile at other men in front of me just long enough to make sure I noticed. How she'd say, "I just need space," when what she really meant was, "Keep chasing me." And for a long time, I did. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, assumed the distance was temporary, blamed myself for the disconnection. But silence taught me something. When someone keeps pulling away, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop reaching. So I did. And with every day that passed without a response, without a return, she started unraveling. I could see it through the messages she sent, shorter at first, then longer, more emotional, erratic. It wasn't love. It wasn't regret. It was control slipping. She texted, "I never wanted this." Then, "I didn't think you'd actually leave." And the most telling one, "We can fix this if you just talk to me." But I'd already talked. I'd talked when I asked her why she stopped wearing her ring. I'd talked when I said I felt invisible. I'd talked the night she walked out on our anniversary and told me she was celebrating alone. And every time I opened my mouth, she closed the door a little more. Now, that door was sealed. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I didn't post anything, didn't make a show out of my absence. I just disappeared from her narrative. And that, more than anything, terrified her. Because when a man screams, they can label him bitter. When he cries, they can call him weak. But when he goes silent, when he just walks away without warning, they feel it like a cut with no sound. She messaged Mason again, this time with a voice note. He didn't even open it, just handed me the phone and said, "She's spiraling, man." I nodded, not with pride, but with confirmation. Because that's what happens when someone builds a world on control and then loses the one person who gave it meaning. I didn't block her. That would have been too easy. I left the door open just enough for her to see what it looked like when someone chooses peace over performance. She kept texting, kept calling, kept hoping I'd break the silence. But I didn't. Because that silence, it wasn't just absence. It was my answer. By week 2, her tone had changed. The arrogance was gone. No more sharp texts. No more blame. Just desperation dressed in nostalgia. She sent photos, old ones. Us at the beach. Her in my hoodie. A blurry shot of us laughing in the kitchen like we hadn't already been breaking. Then came the message. "We were happy once, right?" I read it and set the phone down. Because the answer didn't matter anymore. She was asking to re-enter a world she no longer belonged to. A world she burned while smiling. A world I built. And she made me question. See, that's the thing about peace. Once a man finds it, even the past stops having power. She tried calling my mom next. Didn't expect that. My mother answered, polite, controlled, cold. Told her, "You had him. And you lost him. This family doesn't do backtracking." That hit her harder than anything I could have said, because my mother never inserted herself. But this time, she drew the line. And when even the family closes the gate, you know the bridge is dust. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't hate her. I just stopped believing in a version of us that only existed in filtered memories. She began showing up at places I used to go. The gym, the coffee shop, the bookstore I loved. She wasn't subtle. She wanted to be seen, wanted me to feel her absence in reverse. But that version of me, the man she could emotionally bait, he was gone. I'd become a ghost in her world, present only in silence. And the silence spoke louder than any scream I could have thrown her way. The thing that broke her finally wasn't my departure. It was her realizing no one was coming back. Not the man she ignored. Not the one she manipulated. And definitely not the one who used to wait around for breadcrumbs of affection. I'd stopped waiting. I'd started living. New habits. New circles. New air. She was just a lesson now. A painful one, yes, but one I had mastered. Some nights she still tried. Late texts. Music we used to love. Quotes about soulmates and growth. But I saw through it. Because people don't change through regret. They change through action. And by the time she realized what she had, I'd already become the man she thought she could replace, without ever understanding the value he carried. She asked for a loan. And now, she had it. Not as a threat, but as her reality. It was a Saturday. Quiet. Clean. Just the way I liked it now. I had just come back from a morning run. Threw my shoes off, started making eggs, simple, peaceful, when the doorbell rang. I knew before I even opened it. Her silhouette behind the frosted glass. Still, waiting. I didn't move at first. Just watched. It was strange. How someone who once filled your life can start to look like a stranger in the space they used to claim. I opened the door. She stood there in a hoodie too clean for comfort. No makeup. Eyes red. Said my name like it still belonged to her. I said nothing. She looked around me, into the house, like she expected to be invited in, like she still had that privilege. But I didn't step back. She said she missed me, that she didn't know what she had until it was gone, that she was willing to fix it. Said the words slow, like a confession. I didn't flinch, because I knew what this was. This wasn't healing. This was panic. This was a woman who never thought I'd walk, realizing I'd not only left, but that I hadn't looked back. She said, "I've changed." I thought about the dozens of nights I'd sat across from her at the dinner table, watching her scroll through her phone while I talked. The birthdays she forgot. The anniversaries she repurposed as girls' trips. The silences she used as punishment anytime I asked for connection. I remembered all of it. Not with anger, but with clarity. She wanted forgiveness without responsibility. A reset without ownership. She wanted to skip the part where she was accountable and go straight to the part where I softened. But that version of me, he was buried with the love she wasted. I finally spoke. Not loud, not emotional, just steady. I said, "You broke something you can't put back." She didn't expect that. Her lips parted like she wanted to protest, but no sound came. Because deep down, she knew I was right. I didn't close the door hard. I didn't raise my voice. I just shut it. And this time, she didn't knock again. She stood there for a moment longer, then left. No dramatic goodbye. No final plea. Just the sound of her walking away, slowly, realizing that the man who once begged for her time had finally reclaimed his own. After that day, the calls stopped. The messages slowed. She finally understood. There was no access anymore. Not to my time, not to my space, and definitely not to the man I used to be. Because the truth is, I didn't just leave her. I left the version of myself that tolerated being a placeholder in my own life. I stopped compromising with someone who only showed up when they felt lonely. Stopped loving someone who treated my loyalty like a leash. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt myself in silence. Started lifting heavier, reading more, sleeping better. I reconnected with old friends, the ones she subtly distanced me from with her passive comments. I reached out to my father, hadn't spoken in months. He said I sounded different. Lighter. I said, "That's what happens when you stop bleeding for someone who never noticed the cuts." He understood more than he let on. And for the first time in years, I felt grounded. Not because I had someone, but because I didn't need anyone. She tried one more time, through a mutual friend. Said she still had things of mine. Books, shirts, a watch I hadn't worn in years. I told the friend to tell her, "Keep them. They belong to the man I used to be." She didn't respond after that, because it wasn't about the stuff. It never is. It was a test, a final reach, but I wasn't reaching back. She had to sit in the reality she created. No anger, no screaming match, just a clean vacancy. And that, I've learned, is the loudest goodbye. See, most people expect the storm. They prepare for the yelling, the slammed doors, the late-night begging. But when all they're met with is silence, that's when it hits them, the weight of what they lost. Not because the other person became cruel, but because they became whole. She told her friends I'd changed. Said I became cold, distant, unrecognizable. And she was right. Because healing doesn't look like revenge. It looks like indifference. It looks like a man walking past what once destroyed him and not flinching, not hating, just moving forward. I became someone she'll talk about at brunch in whispers, saying, "He just left." But the truth? I didn't just leave. I evolved. And that version of me, the grounded, unshakable one, she'll never know him again. Months passed. Seasons shifted. The air got colder, but my world felt warmer without her chaos. I never blocked her. Didn't need to. I knew the silence was louder than anything I could say. And I knew, sooner or later, I'd hear the echo of her collapse from a distance. And I did. It started with whispers. A message from an old coworker. "Hey man, saw your ex at the bar last night." She looked lost. Then another. "She's asking mutual friends about you. Like she's hoping someone says you're still waiting." I wasn't. She spiraled the way people do when their mask finally slips and no one's clapping anymore. The spotlight she used to crave didn't hit the same when there was no one in the front row. She tried changing her image. New hair, new friends, new captions online about growth and healing. But growth doesn't look like curated photos. It looks like accountability. And healing? That doesn't happen when you're still playing the victim in a story you wrote. I saw a post once, one of those vague, manipulative ones. A black background with white text. Sometimes you lose someone who never should have left. I didn't comment, didn't message, didn't care, because I wasn't checking for her. She was checking for me. And that difference? It's everything. She started showing up to events she once hated, places she swore were boring when we were together. Now she stood alone, hoping to accidentally run into me. She didn't, because I'd outgrown not just her, but every space she polluted with her performance. Friends told me she looked different, not in a physical way, in her energy, in her eyes. That light she used to carry, the one fueled by attention and control, gone. Because the thing about power is, it's only real when someone gives it to you. And I'd taken mine back. Not with revenge, not with rage, with resolve. She texted once more. A long message. Said she had dreams about us. Said she missed my calm, my patience, my consistency. Said no one compared. She was right. But I'd moved on from needing to be the best man she never appreciated. Now I was just the man she'd never reach again. Because when a man heals, when he rebuilds himself from the ground up, he doesn't return to what cracked the foundation. He builds a new house. Stronger, cleaner, peaceful. And he locks the doors behind him. The last time I heard from her was on a Tuesday. A random weekday, early evening. No build-up, no context. She messaged, "If you ever decide to come back, I'll be here." I didn't answer. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because I finally understood what it meant to let go without ceremony. She wasn't a villain. Not fully. She was just a mirror I stared into for too long, hoping I'd find love in a place that only reflected my silence. And I gave her too much of it. Time, patience, grace. But there's a line between grace and self-abandonment. And I crossed it too many times in the name of love. Now I wasn't angry, wasn't even numb. I was calm. And in that calm, I saw everything clearly. The manipulation wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was subtle. The way she'd twist my words, make me feel guilty for needing her, then withdraw affection like it was a reward I hadn't earned. She played the long game. And for a while, she won. Until I stopped showing up to play. There's power in not reacting. Power in not needing closure. Because you've already closed the chapter yourself. That was my final move. Not blocking her. Not exposing her. Just detaching entirely. Now, my life is quiet. Purposeful. I don't look over my shoulder when I walk into a room. I don't sleep with tension in my jaw. I don't wake up questioning if today will be the day she changes. Because I'm no longer waiting for someone to evolve in the direction I already walked away from. I see her sometimes, online mostly. She's still trying to curate a version of herself the world will love. But it's hollow. Because the people who knew her deeply, they know the truth. And me? I don't carry resentment. I carry lessons. About boundaries. About self-respect. About how a man loses himself slowly. Not in one big moment, but in the thousand small ones he ignores. I'm done ignoring. Done shrinking to make someone else comfortable. Done confusing chaos for chemistry. So when people ask if I miss her, I say no. Because I don't miss being a shadow of myself just to keep someone else lit. I don't miss begging for love I gave freely. I don't miss the silence I used to fill with apologies she never earned. She had me. Fully. And she taught me exactly who I never want to be again. So no, I didn't just walk away. I walked home, to myself. And the door? It's locked now. From the inside. Been through it. When they crossed the line. And you made sure they felt it. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.